Um, this is our last week for the GoPro book. I'm super excited to get started again next week with the new book, but I wanted to finish up this week with kind of understanding the mindset it takes to go after the steps in this book to actually do the actions that he describes in this book and how to um, I guess approach them in a way where you kind of understand that some of them are going to come supernaturally to you and some of them are going to take a little bit of effort. And I know sometimes when we're approaching something new or something that we've not really spent much time on getting really good at, it can be a little scary or a little not s- just you're kind of apprehensive when it comes to doing some of the steps in this book. I know I was. Um, and Jessica mentioned yesterday that personal development is such a huge part of this, and it truly is. Um, sometimes we have these apprehensive feelings about um, maybe how we invite somebody, or if speaking to a person one on one, face to face, or even on the phone, speaking in front of more than one person, getting up in front of the room and telling your story, or whatever the thing is that will take you to the next level, the step that you really know that you need to get good at. And sometimes we just kind of like, "Ugh, I don't, I'm not even going to try." Um, but the personal development that comes along with this profession, if you've been in this in any amount of time, um, it's next to none. Like I know it's been a big part of my journey in this. And it took me a minute to really like go all in on this because I had some self-developing to do first. Um, I had to kind of really understand my worth and become really self-aware before I took some of those actions. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Um, why becoming self-aware is so important, what it can do for you, and realizing what you're worth and what you deserve, and then how that affects your actions. Good morning, everybody. I love seeing everybody's faces. And you guys tell your people to jump on. I think, like, I know that we replay these, and that's all great for those who absolutely cannot make it on. But just coming together at the beginning of the day, it does so much for your mind and for your gumption to go get things done. I know it does for me anyway. So tell all your friends, tell your team. It's so important to try to make it onto these things live. Um, okay, so I- in my journey through network marketing, when I got started almost 5 years ago, I've been introduced to so many amazing books, authors, people I've never met that I would consider my mentors now because I follow them so closely. Um, and I feel like otherwise, I don't know. I mean, maybe I would have found this path eventually, but um, I'm so glad that it led me to that part because it's changed me in a lot of ways. I think I've always been this kind of mindset type person. But it's definitely helped me become more aware of who I am in that and my abilities and my worth and how I'm able to um, kind of contribute and help in those ways. So, um, self-development in this industry is huge. It makes a huge impact on our lives, not only in our business, but in our lives. And one of the first self-development books I read when I started, Jess actually sent this to me in the mail. I had no clue it was coming and went to my mailbox one day and it was just there. Was You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero. And I know a lot of people have read this book by now. It's one of my favorites. I actually would love to go back and reread it. It's been a while, but it totally changed the game for me because it allowed me to help realize my worth. It made me start to question some things about myself. It helped me to realize some of the things that little voice was telling me was completely false, and it wasn't even me really saying those things. Um, and it helped me to kind of realize that it all begins with that self-awareness and really becoming aware of what we're saying to ourselves, what we are have taught ourselves to believe or been taught to believe, and self-awareness can be hard to handle sometimes. Um, it's a process for sure, and it can be a humbling process. And it's all like it's like being a process, it's all a part of a process. The good, the bad, the ugly, the tears, the realization that you have weaknesses, because contrary to what your mother may think of you, you have some weaknesses. We all do, and it's okay. It's what makes us us. And we also have some really great strengths that we are not taking full advantage of, or that we maybe don't even realize that we have, until we actually do the things, right? So self-awareness just helps us identify what those weaknesses are, identify what our strengths are, so that we can then begin to completely accept and completely love ourselves as a whole. Um, the part about realizing there's strengths that you maybe don't even know that you have, was huge for me, because there were things that I am really good at that I didn't even allow myself the opportunity to find out until I um, started on this journey, or this process of becoming self-aware, and realizing my worth and my place and what I have to offer. Um, it also allows us to become completely accountable. Becoming self-aware can allow us to further use what we have to help others, and it can help us fulfill our purpose. Think about how awesome of a feeling that is. But it allows us to solve our own problems too. If you become self-aware, you are more effective in being accountable for the things that you need to be accountable for, and taking action for them. I hope that makes sense. Um, but we become accountable to ourselves, and we become accountable to our purpose, and realizing that we do have strengths. We are really good at some things. Some people are really good at talking in front of a huge crowd. Some people are really good at talking one on one, and the other is not so easy for them. Um, in order to do all that we have to, in order, okay, how do I want to say this? We have to know our strengths and weaknesses in order to be able to execute the things that we need to do, in order to take the actions that we need to take. If you are just ignoring all of these things because you haven't taken the time to deal with them, or you're just believing something that that maybe you were taught, or an experience taught you in the past, that may not necessarily be true. So if we have to take the time to become aware of those things. um I was reading a blog on self-awareness, and they talked about ways to become more self-aware. It was like, steps to help yourself realize some of these things. And one of the things they mentioned was to try new things. And I know that's scary for some people. And get out of your comfort zone. We talk about that all the time, right? Everything you want's right outside of the comfort zone. And now, when you think of that, sometimes people think, oh my gosh, you don't have to go base jumping off the side of a mountain, or jump off a bridge. Little tiny things can make the difference too. And little steps lead to uncovering some of those things for yourself, and realizing how much more powerful that you are than you think. But little changes, little decisions work too. So for instance, if you're in a meeting and you have always been afraid to raise your hand and speak up. Um, like, for instance, on Thursdays on the Daily Dose. Do it, try it, see what happens. You're not gonna die, I promise. Um, Talking to a stranger, does that scare you? I mean, for somebody like Haas, that's like his total strength in life. For some others, it's a weakness. But maybe it's not. Maybe you're really good at it. You've just been so afraid to even try that you'll never know unless you do. Um, Admitting when you're wrong or you make a mistake. That's not easy for everybody. That's not easy for a lot of people. But for some, they have no problem with doing that. That's a strength for them. But these are all things that, if you are become self-aware and say, these are some things that I feel like are my weaknesses, and you go out and maybe try one of them, even if you fall flat on your face, at least you're like, okay, yep, I really need to get better at that. Um, it allows you the clarity, I guess, or the vision of these are the things that I'm really good at. So I'm really going to go after all of these things. And these are the things that I maybe need to work on a little bit. And little by little, you can add those. Like we can get those things that are weaknesses in this column over here and move them over to strengths because little by little, you did little things all along the way to get better at them. Um, and I think that self-awareness, this process that you go through when you start to realize what your weaknesses are, what your strengths are, the things that you kind of step out of your comfort zone and try, they really make you realize what your self-worth is and that everybody has a purpose and a place and a worth in this world, and we all deserve to go after whatever that is. We all deserve to have whatever life it is that we want to have. And that self awareness journey helps us to realize that. And you kind of start to realize and embrace your strengths while accepting some of those things that are weaknesses. And we love ourselves and accept ourselves wholly. Like, you don't have to be like, oh, I hate that I'm so bad at talking on the phone. I hate that I can't get up in front of the room. Like, don't feel bad for those things. If that's something that you really want to get good at, just say, I understand that I'm not very good at it right now, but I'm going to work my way there. Um, and so it just kind of allows us to be us and do the things that we want to do, weakness or strength. Like you start to decide that your worth is more than this little voice telling you you can't do something. Um, and once this occurs, once you know your worth, that's when kind of the real magic starts to happen. Like I said, those little voices aren't so loud anymore, and you kind of stop listening to them because you're like, my worth and what I want to do is more important than this little voice telling me I can't. Um, and understanding that you deserve whatever life it is that you say that you want, like really believing that and understanding that. And once you decide that you deserve it, that's when the game like literally changes, you guys. Your confidence goes up, your effort goes up, your focus goes up, your tenacity goes up, your action goes up. And so I said all of that to say this. Maybe some of the actions necessary to in this book that he talks about in order to become a professional network marketer are outside of your comfort zone. Maybe they're things that you've never done before. Um, Going live on Facebook, whatever the thing is that you are like, ooh, this is something that I know is on the list of things that I should probably attempt or go after or grow my business with. And something, lack of self awareness and lack of self worth, is holding you back from. Um, Maybe talking on the phone is scary. Maybe talking in front of people is a fear, but when you become self-aware and you know your worth, those necessary, scary actions that are outside of your comfort zone, they become a must do. You you then kind of decide, I have to find a way to figure out how to get myself to do these things. And all the little reasons why it's scary matter less. It's still scary. It's still scary for everybody. It's still scary for the most confident person. But once you have that, like, I deserve this, I am going to make this happen no matter what, you start to kind of become a little bit more um, innovative. Maybe I don't know if that's the right word I'm looking for, but you start to figure out like I will find a way to do this. There is a way, and I will find it, and I will make myself, and I will get better little by little. And those little actions that you start to take because you're like, I don't have any other choice. I deserve this. This is what I'm going to do. Um, that's when things start to really change for you in your life and in your business. You kind of all of a sudden are like, oh my gosh, I am the one they're asking to talk in front of the room now. I can tell my story like that. I have no problem inviting a stranger to check out my business or my product. Like those things over time, you all of a sudden are really good at them, or they don't cause you so much anxiety anymore. Um, but your courage goes up because you deserve the outcome. You realize that the outcome is something you deserve and you're worth it. Don't don't be so hard on yourself in this process, you guys. You may the first time you go live, the first time you stand up in front of a room and speak or tell your story, the first time you pick up the phone to make a phone call, the first time you attempt to talk to a stranger, whatever the thing is for you, you may fall flat on your face and you may suck at it, but you attempted it and you learned, okay, yep, that's maybe not the way to do it. Maybe next time I should have some notes for myself, or maybe next time I should practice with a friend. Um, you start to understand and learn that there are ways to get better at these things. You don't just say, well, I can't do that and walk away from it because you understand that you deserve this life that you say that you want. And this path that you've decided to go down to get there requires you to get better at these things. And you're worth it. You're worth putting in that effort and making yourself do those things. Um, it's a process, like I said, self awareness, accountability, and then self worth, and knowing that you deserve it. That process leads you to the action. Without the process of knowing yourself or understanding what your weaknesses and strengths are and your worth, um, some, if not most of the actions that they talk about in this book are going to seem almost impossible. And some of them you haven't even attempted, you haven't even tried to get better at them, you haven't even um, realized that you are capable of doing them. So if you find yourself struggling in that, uh, even attempting some of these things that he talks about in this book, maybe we take a step back, take some time to really assess our self awareness, realize and write down, what are you really good at? What are you really good at? What are you kind of struggling at? What are your fears of attempting something? Um, and start that process of understanding, becoming self aware, and accepting yourself, your beautiful, imperfect self. Because I promise you, there's nobody on this planet that is good at everything. And if they're really good at something that you want to do, maybe you should start paying attention. Learn their story because I promise you there was a process. They didn't wake up one day and become really good at going live on Facebook, or they didn't become really good at talking to strangers, or some of these things were a process for people. They knew they were worth it, so they put in what it took to get really good at it. And so maybe that's what it's going to take for us too. And this whole process before you get to the action is what sets people apart. That's what makes people good at what they're doing because they realized that it's going to take some effort, but you know what? I'm worth that effort. And you have to realize that you deserve to be successful at this, in that you're not just going to throw spaghetti at the wall and hope something sticks, that you're worth putting in what it takes to become a professional at this, at really getting really good at it. Um, you wouldn't go into any other profession hoping that to get lucky. You would put in the time and effort, you would go to the classes, you would learn how to do something. Um, So the same goes for this. You have to put in the time, the effort, understand what it takes, understand what you're really good at, understand what you're not so good at, and then go after getting better at those things. How do you do that? Self-development, following people who are really good at it, talking to people who've had success in it and how did they get there. Um, then you'll be able to approach those actions a little bit differently. And I mean, honestly, you cannot tell me there's not a difference when you're confident in something and you understand and you know your worth and you decide no matter what, I'm going to make this happen. Then if you're like, well, we'll just see. I hope it works out for me, but you don't put any kind of like effort behind it. You don't step outside and try something new. You don't go after the thing that it is that you say that you want. Um, so I promise you, I guarantee you, your approach to these actions, your outlook on these steps is completely different if you go through this self awareness and this realizing your worth process. Be willing to do it ugly before you do it well. Absolutely, Amy. Yes, progress over perfection. Those are all parts of the process. That's why self development is so important in this, because while you need both self development and actions, if you're not approaching these actions with the right mindset and understanding that you deserve it and you're worth it and you will get there, those actions are going to be a lot more difficult and you may not even attempt some of them. So that's where we want to kind of help people understand and realize that just because it's a little bit scary and you might not be great at it doesn't mean you shouldn't attempt it and get better at it and practice it, because that's what it takes to get really good at something. um Number one, you're going to realize your weaknesses and work on to improve them, and number two, you'll realize strengths that you didn't even know you had. um like that was a huge one for me because I was always so afraid to get up in front of a room. Like I would literally shake before in my um 9 to 5 job that I had before I started network marketing. Sorry, I gotta take a drink, guys. I Every Monday we would have a meeting for the whole company, and each manager of each department would have to report on their department. And so I would have to get up in front of the entire company and tell them all the things about how customer service was going. And I would literally shake with the microphone in my hand trying to talk to these people in front of this room of people. And I was really good at customer service. I helped run that department. So obviously they had some faith in my abilities, but getting up and telling people about it was so scary for me. And that was prior to the self-development that network marketing led me to. And so once I started to kind of realize that it just takes practice and it takes writing it down and maybe reading it over and over to yourself and making notes and not just getting up there and reading something over time. Yeah, I still get nervous. I still cannot make myself go live, you guys. I've done it in the past, but there's this like mental block I have about doing it. And so everyone struggles with something. Don't think that you are the only one. It's that feeling of like, I'm the only one that can't seem to make myself do this. No, you are not. But the difference is I went through the process of becoming self-aware of like, okay, that's something I really need to work on, because I heard that the person in the front of the room probably makes the most money. So I got to get up there. That's what I want to do. So I have to get better at it. And just little by little by little, I made myself get better at it. I took the steps. I wrote the notes. I read them out loud to myself. I recorded. I mean, I remember driving home from work the day that I was supposed to get on a conference, back when we did conference calls and not Zooms. Um, and I was going to tell my story for the first time. And I wrote it out and I read it and I would say it out loud and I would say it out loud again. I mean, I can't tell you my whole hour drive commute home that I used to have. I spent that entire hour going over in my head what I was going to say on that call that night. And so if you just understand that I'm going to do this no matter what and do what it takes to get better at it, um, it makes a world of difference. But it all starts with becoming self-aware. It all starts with knowing your worth and that you deserve to be successful in this. And I promise you, if you go through that process, you approach these actions in a completely different way. Yeah, they're kind of a little still scary, and yeah, you might have to do some work to get better at them, but you are willing to put in the work. You're willing to take the actions that it takes in order to complete these steps and do the things that it takes to become professional at something. Um, so just keep that in mind. Take some time to become self-aware if that's something you're struggling with doing, and just know that you are worth it. You are worth taking the time to go through that process and taking the time to get better at the things that you need to do in order to become professional at this and be successful. And give yourself a break. It does take time. And just know that, I mean, these, like, I always think about like these 5 years are going to pass. When, just talked yesterday about the 135, those 5 years are going to pass anyway. Why not spend them getting better and climbing slowly but surely your way to where you want to be? Um, because I know you're worth it. And I know that deep down, you know you're worth it. You just have to become self-aware of the things that you need to maybe work on a little bit, and do some things that you have never done before that maybe seem a little scary, because you might surprise yourself and be really good at them. And then you have so much to offer other people. Um, it's it's a process worth doing. I promise. Every single one of you are worth that process. So I hope that was helpful for you guys today in approaching some of the action steps in this book that we went over this month. Um, Happy Tuesday. I'm super excited. Tomorrow we have Sydney, and then Thursday we get to hear from all of you beautiful people in Haas. So hope your Tuesday is awesome. If you guys get your people on here, let's build up this morning accountability. um, I love all of you. You are worth it. You deserve everything you ever want in life. So let's go after it. All right, guys, have a wonderful day. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 8:30. Bye.